We will now see how we can set up invoice print formats and print management and custom grouping settings to manage the way you would like your invoices to look. I have a project contract here that is set up with a few transactions, and we can see how we can manage the print settings for this project contract. Let's navigate to the project contract. And the first place where you can set up the printed invoice format is on the contract itself. So on the contract, you have the funding sources tab on which you have specified the customer that is going to fund this project. On that funding sources tab, you will see that you can specify an invoice format for the customer. Here, there are 3 predefined formats that are available in Dynamics AX for project invoices. These are detailed invoice where every single transaction is shown as a separate line item on the invoice. There is the summary invoice where amounts are summarized by category, and then there is the summary invoice summarizes amounts by transaction types, and summary invoice by category summarizes transactions by category, as the name indicates. And summarization is usually defined, as I mentioned, on the project contract so that it will default onto every invoice proposal created for that contract. So on this particular project contract, let's say we want a summary invoice. Let's set that up on the contract and save it. Now let's go ahead and try to create an invoice proposal for this contract. I have a few transactions logged for this project contract, so I'll select those transactions which are already pre-selected for me, and I'll create an invoice proposal for that contract. As you can see, the invoice proposal has been created now, and as you can see that the format on the invoice proposal has been set to summary invoice. Let's try to preview this invoice format and see how a summary invoice would look like. So it has summarized the amounts by transaction type and shows me. And it's very likely that you may want to see more detail on your invoice format that you send to the customers. So this value has been defaulted from the project contract, but it is also possible for you to override this value on the project contract. And let's say we want a very detailed invoice for this project contract. Let's go ahead and preview this format. So now we can see by transaction type, every single transaction is listed out, and it is shown our invoice is a really detailed format. Every single transaction shows up as a separate line item on the invoice. This is the detailed invoice format. There is also a summary invoice by category, which we will preview, and this one summarizes transactions by category and transaction type. So under expense, we have copy and travel, and we have these amounts, and under hour, we have consult and ERP dev. If you had noticed, consult category itself had many individual timesheets, but this particular invoice format has summarized by category, all the transactions by category.
Okay.
So
you can't touch anywhere up there. You're scratching your shoulder. It's just
oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let's back up and just do that last piece over again.
So as you can see, this format has summarized transactions by category and transaction type. So on the hour transaction type, we had consult, and under the consult category, we had many different timesheet lines, but all of those timesheet lines have been summarized for consult category, have been summarized. And that format is summary invoice by category. These are the 3 out-of-the-box print formats that we have. If none of these fit your requirements, you can also create your own custom format on the invoice proposal. This option is only available at the document or the invoice proposal level. We do not today have a way where you can define your custom formatting at the contract level. So let's see how the custom formatting works. For custom formatting, you create your own custom lines, and we call this, let's say I'll call this line all design work. And I will group the available transactions of this particular consult line and this particular expense line. I will group them under design work. I'll create a new line and I'll call it all implementation work. I can select the rest of the lines and I'm going to include it here. And let's now preview this. Save it. Go back. And we have those two lines. Let's preview this. On this, you will see that it will have two lines as defined by you, and the amounts will be grouped accordingly in your invoice format. So you have all implementation work and you have a summary there. And you have all design work and you have a summary there. So this is a very specific custom format that you can define at the document level. Besides the summarization options, the built-in summarizations and the custom formats that you have, we also have an extensive print management framework in AX. And in order to set up print management, go to the area page, under the Forms menu, go to Form Setup and access print management. The print management infrastructure in AX allows you to define a custom report format, an entirely custom report format. So you can develop your own reports and associate it to the project invoice report here, to the specific project invoice report. And you can also define your destination. If you want a particular printer or a particular mode of transmission for your invoice, you can set up all your invoices to go via email, and you can specify email tokens where you can say, okay, I'm going to add, send this to the customer's business address, right? You can specify those kind of settings in print management, and all invoices will go to the business address of the customer that is set up. So this is the print management infrastructure that we have. And the advantage of print management infrastructure is also that it has an extensive defaulting mechanism. So let's say I define this particular setting and I have a custom footer text saying invoices for custom prints. Let's say I have this default footer text that I want to print on every single invoice I generate. Now, once I define this at the module level, it applies to all project invoices that I might create within this LE. Now, the defaulting comes in to a lot of help here, where you can then go to the navigate to the project contracts, and you can navigate to the specific project contract, and you see print management here. So you can set up print management, and what you would see is if you navigate to the invoice that we defined, it shows those values. And if you want to deviate from those values, you can always do that by overriding these settings, and you can say, let's say I call this, I'm overriding this at the project contract level, contract for one-to-one contract. So now if I go to the invoice proposal document, or the that I have for this particular contract, I will see print management over here, and I can see that I have a custom footer text and email mode of transmission, and I can override this further for this specific invoice proposal. And this can also be done at the customer level. So there are about 4 levels of defaulting for the settings you define on print management. There is one at the module level that applies to all LEs. And second level is the customer, that applies to any invoice, project invoice generated for that customer. And then you can further override at a specific contract or engagement level. And you can also override at the specific invoice proposal level. So that is, in effect, the total print management functionality and the summarization options for the print infrastructure we have in AX. Let's review some of the concepts we have. Print management, it's a configurable infrastructure where you can specify your custom report and specify a particular mode of transmission or print destination, and it has multiple levels of defaulting where you set it up for a module, a customer contract, or a specific invoice document. Print management, you can, with the destination, you can send it to either a printer, screen, file, or email, and email tokens can be set up so that you can send it to all addresses with that purpose. So that the system then figures out the actual email address that it needs to send at runtime. You only specify that it needs to go to the customer's business location, or it needs to go to the customer's remittance email address, and the system then figures out based on how the customer is set up to figure out the email address that it needs to send to. And we also have custom groupings where if any of the predefined groupings of by transaction or by category does not fit your needs, you can define your own groupings, and then you can have a pretty ad hoc grouping of transactions across transaction types and categories into a specific custom group that you create for that.